Today's Tuesday, but I don't know why I feel like it's Sunday evening. Maybe because in Los Angeles it's cloudy and rainy. I'm wearing my glasses so I can read, but I don't necessarily need them for far. Anyways, I'm just checking in. I just finished the microphone, a re-ribbon for a cat named Adam. Adam's been looking out for his mics. I got a stack of mics over here. I'm battling away, chipping away. They have to be done one at a time. I've got to tune them. I've got to listen to them on my speakers. So if you send in your microphones, have some patience. People are getting them in the mail back. I've been getting some really good responses from them, and I just wanted to just touch base. Um, I just did a live thing. Was it yesterday? Day before, and I showed you a little bit of tour of my studio. I haven't really done too many videos, and I feel I've got a lot of really cool ideas. I got some cool bands. I'd really love to do a breakdown of recording more on the style of engineering. You know, and like you and everyone that watches social media and stuff, I feel I wanted to just talk a little bit about what it takes, regarding recording, engineering, producing. And I think a lot of times people generalize, when you say you're a producer or whatever, like what that means. And I think that's when I always say I'm only as good as the last band I recorded. So if I was one of those producers that had a little keyboard that popped out over here and I wrote songs and I composed music myself, I would rely a lot on probably plugins and sound replacements, and my platform would be, Logic, Cubase, whatever. I have a lot of friends that use Reaper, and but I have Pro Tools, and it's not even that I have Pro Tools because I think it's better than anything else. When I grew up recording, it was one of the first things that I used, and I'm really like an old dog new tricks. I really love the way it sounds. Um, so when we talk about producing and you talk about working with bands, I've got a bunch of all these things around here that is a lot of it's analog, a lot of it's old school. But I will say on my social media, I see a lot of people that, let's say the first thing the guy does is, when people ask me or they say, "Here's what you need to do to mix," and I just think it's so interesting and funny to me because all my friends that are the real dudes. I mean, we can go from Nick Lene, Dave Sardi, uh, my friend Robert Carranza. I mean, go down the line of guys that are producing, and they're not really doing all that stuff. I mean, they get bands and they have their systems, and I know some guys that are really big producers. They have massive setups. I mean, an SSL console that is like 100 channels, and they've got all the analog gear. And when they go to mix a record, they've got this cat that's in the back that prepares everything and makes sure that any sound replacement or whatever they're using, it comes out the same way, and they mix in it. So when you have someone like that, and you're trying to compete with that, and you're someone like, I'll just speak honestly, like you and I, who are making records, I just think it's misleading. I see a lot of stuff on guys that are telling you on, when I mix or listen to these drums, and they like have these sound replaced drums and they're tuning them and they're showing you how to compress them. When you record real drums, it's kind of like a wild animal. Unless that animal is on repeat and every session you do has the same drummer, same setup. And I know like not Sylvia Massey, what is her name? The girl that does Linda Perry. Was it Linda Perry? I mean, there was a time where she had the same band come in all the time, and she would back up these great artists. Yeah, you're gonna get a lot of consistency in that, but when someone tells you that you need to sound really good and they're convincing you to sound replace all your drums, I don't think what they tell you is that your recordings are going to just sound like everything else. It's like food, like why do some people like to go to certain restaurants? Because it's boutique. It's doesn't taste like other places. So if you make something that's like everyone else, man, we all eat McDonald's. So if you're looking to produce and make something like McDonald's, then yeah, you have that approach of get your sample packs together and the only thing I will say when I hear bands, even bands that are hitting so hard and the drums are sound replaced, it just sounds terrible to me. I spend a lot of time getting real drums and so, you know, I spend a lot of time getting real drum sounds and it's not because I think I'm better than anyone else. I just happen to love that. But it is a roll of dice. It's a roll of dice on the drummer. Even if my setup is tops, I could get a bad day of, drummers sometimes don't, they do a lot of cymbals and they're playing their toms and they didn't hit their kick drum hard enough. And there are all these little things that now people would say will not sound professional. But I found that even with those sessions, and if you work a little bit harder in them, the reward is you'll have something that sounds different. And man, the world has made you think that this plugin is going to save you. Or what's your vocal chain? I mean, I know guys right now that just an LA2A, an 1176, or a 160 DBX or a DBX 160 and an 1176, like two things or one things on vocal chains. And yes, you'll get into the world of mic pre's, like some guys will be like Neves, APIs. But a lot of times it's like, yeah, if Robert Plant comes in or some guy that you think is a really good singer, probably any preamp you use most likely is going to sound pretty killer if you capture the vibe. Capturing it is the hard part. And microphones are always the same. I remember this one time this guy came in and I had some really nice mics. And every time he was singing, it sounded like all his face, there was no impact. I was like, what is that? Doesn't matter how much he screams or yells or whatever, there was like no sound. And what it was is somehow, like in his throat or his voice, he was projecting, but it wasn't kind of through his face. And that was the first time I'm like, okay. And I think at the time I only had dynamics. And I was just like, I need to get something that's like a tube microphone that's going to open up and capture more of that. And there's a lot of times when you use tube mics and you use them on Omni or you use some other kind of mic to get that vocal sound. So if you have those guys that come on and tell you that, use this, I always think it's really interesting that when a guy gets drums up and they instantly start surgically tearing apart the drums with EQs, or I think EQs that you would need to fix stuff. If you have a really good recording, I will say cutting frequencies is a lot more musical to make more things fit as opposed to boosting and doing all these different harmonics that are just kind of being done um, because someone told you to. I was shocked. I've done these. Just one of the last records I did, I had mixed it, tracking the band. There's really no plugins. I don't use a lot of plugins either, but I was using plugins. Then I threw in my template. Okay, well here I go. I'm Mr. Pro Manny. I'm gonna use my whatever presets I'd had. And when I played back after I've put in my pixie dust, whatever I thought would make them sound better, it did not sound better. And I was like, what the hell? I opened up the original session when they were in here recording with me. It sounded amazing. It was totally banging. I just realized I only had like a Fairchild strapped across the stereo, master fader, and then the rest of it was really minimal. 1176s, LA2As, maybe I think it's called PSP. There's like a reverb I really love. There's like two or three things on it. So if you're engineering and you're trying to record bands, I would not buy into, I think you do need plugins like everyone else. If another way to look at it is also if you look at like Nevermind by Nirvana, or you look at what Andy Wallace mixed, Grace, or whatever these records, even Zeppelin records. When you went to those studios, and even me going back to Sound City, I was at Sound City. I think the first time I recorded in Sound City was not me as a producer, but as someone in a band. Early 90s, maybe 94, 95. And there wasn't a lot of gear in there. They had, 1176s, LA2As. Um, I think they had a plate reverb or they had a reverb room. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But they're just, and, lexicons, SPX 90s, like really you would consider dumb stuff that they don't really care about anymore. And all those studios made amazing sounding records. So you can say it's tape, analog, you know, at the time you only had Neumann, um, FET 47s on the kick, KM84s, KM85s, C12s. Even at Sound City, they had a C12 that you went in the back of Sound City. Um, it never worked. I think every time I was in there from like 1994 to later on, there was, it never worked. And I know Sound City's not there anymore, so. Um, But that console, the one that Dave Grohl bought, was in studio. I guess it would be A, the big room. And I remember I had mixed the Breeders record, and I want to say it's B, but they called it the Rated R room, and that's because Rated R by Queens of the Stone Age was mixed in there. And that console in there was Sylvia Macy's or Massey's. She'd been in there for a long time, and I think they leased it from her. So you had that Neve console, the one that Dave Grohl bought in the big room, and then they had her console, which was like I think a newer Neve, in Studio B or the Rated R room. And when I mixed in there it was like really like you're mixing through the console. You've got a few reverbs, and I just think the beauty of that is what's being missed now. So when we talk about making records, and all these guys come on and they tell you, you know, when people ask me, guess what? I've been recording for over 25 years. No one ever asks me. And all the guys I know that know, even when they like hang out like with like Nigel Godrich or something like that, they're not asking each other, hey man, how did you mix that? They're just like, how's life going? What's going on with you? And then like these guys are making records in some of the greatest studios in the world. So there's something to be said about that as well, because now a lot of studios have gone. They're not there anymore. The buildings have been torn down. I was lucky enough to record at A&M Studios, which was Charlie Chaplin's old studio. I think it's something else now. I forget the name of it. But in those days when I think A&M Records also, is A&M still even a label? I have no idea. But A&M Studios was aligned with A&M Records, and they would make and I remember when we were in there recording, Motley Crue was in there working on a record with Bob Rock, and I remember walking by one of the rooms, and man, I don't know if Bob Rock had it, was this huge Variac, which a Variac is it's kind of a big light dimmer, and you put your Marshall heads into it, and then you actually lower it down. So if it's at like 120 or 110, I think Eddie Van Halen would lower his down to like 98 or something like that. So they had a big digital readout, and Mick Mars had all his heads, and they had this massive Variac that was killing the power to his heads. so they sounded better. Those little things like that, like buying a Variac, it's dangerous and you can blow your heads, but if you use them right, they're really wonderful and they really give you great sounds. So all these little things of going into like A&M Studios, being around Sound City, uh, luckily enough, working at Electrical Audio, Steve Albini studio. I've been to Abbey Road. I mastered at Abbey Road, and it's crazy when you think about the gear and the people. And when I was actually at Abbey Road, Dave Sardi was working with Oasis, so I actually got to. I remember it was really funny because I called up Dave from. I was mastering with a guy named Steve Rook, who's amazing, but I believe he's retired. But I asked Steve if he can connect me with the Beatles room where Dave was, and I called it and I asked for Dave, and he's like, Manny, how did you get this number? And I said, Dave, I'm downstairs in the mastering room. And he invited me up, and I got to come out while he was hanging out with Oasis. And when you look down, it's kind of like a crow's nest. Like you look out the window and you can see the big Beatles room. And I walked down the stairs, and he was giving me a little bit of tour of their setup for the Oasis record. And there was a microphone there, and it was like, this is the microphone that was used on Sgt. Pepper's. And, things like that are just wow, you know? But even if you own that microphone, unless you're John Lennon or you have someone that can really make that microphone work, man, you have to really choose your battle, pick your battles on what you buy in your life. And if you start a recording studio and you're like, I'm going to take out a second mortgage on my house and I'm going to buy this studio, will you ever make that back? I mean, I would hope. I'm not going to be one to say, like, negative vibes on anyone that could build something. But if you build it, it doesn't mean they're going to come. And in Los Angeles, I can think of about a half a dozen studios that opened up. They went to town buying all the best stuff. And then little by little, you could see them selling some of their more vintage things. And then they replace them with modern stuff. And then pretty much it's like Vintage King. And that's kind of where they bought all their stuff from. But the old school stuff and investing in old gear that needs to be maintained, it's really difficult. Even living here in Los Angeles, I'm really lucky that, ATC isn't that far if my ATCs blow. Um, I know a few techs that are amazing, so I could drop something off a few minutes from here to get it repaired. And I mean, of the few things that you can't really do, um, it's not that far, even within the United States. So you have to really think about it when you start to build a studio. And I actually just went through that with this place. I've kind of traveled around with a certain group of gear. And it wasn't that I did it because I was thinking I was going to be moving a lot. I just happened to downside. Got to the puree of the gear that I really liked in the mic. Even though my microphone collection is a little bit, it's flexed and changed a little bit. I still look for the same thing. So when you talk about making records or producing or building a studio, you really have to keep in mind, going out and spending your life savings. I mean, I'll be honest with you, go for it. You only live once. But you should be realistic that it's really hard out there to live as an artist and be recording. And I've been doing it for a lot of years. I can say pretty much since about 1998. I've been working in music, and even though I've held a job at AT&T, and then when my father passed away, I was a door guy over at a local bar called the Cha Cha. I'd be like security, and people would be like, "Manny, what the fuck?" And it was just like, I closed my studio. My dad needed to be taken care of. He was dying, and I gave up everything for my family. It was not a big deal to do that. But then once my father had passed, I got back into recording. So it is really difficult to stay alive and to make music. And even though I opened up my new studio, I was out of work for almost 4 months. And if someone told you we're not going to have any money for 4 months, it's pretty difficult. Even though some microphones have come in and I've offered people some ribbon mics, at the time, it's regrettable. I probably, in retrospect, if I would have known in December and January that my studio was going to close and I'd be out of work for about 4 months and I had to build a whole nother recording studio, I don't think I would have taken one mic because it's been a little bit stressful. But I love re-riveting mics. I love making killer mics, and I have some great friends that have continually brought mics to me, and that is some happiness I get out of working with ribbon mics, which is that's what I'm doing. There's no ribbon in there, but there will be. So I'm just putting things together. This is a little ribbon. I'm going to cut that line and put that in a mic. Um, But yeah, so I'm basically just going live, and Bruno, what's up? Hola. Um, I'm just going live because it's just interesting. Like I see the same stuff you guys see, and my buds that are like the dudes, and I always talk about the dudes, man. I'm really lucky to have guys, and I don't think it should be competitive. Like I don't think you can say, um, what's that, brother? Um, Chalet Creek, Shallot Creek, Shelley Creek. Um, I don't think you can really say that someone is better than someone else. Like, let's say of the guys that I like. Of course, I love Steve Albini, God rest his soul. He was nice enough to take me aside and show me how to record in the early days. He would always take my calls with stupid questions like, how do you mic up a stand up bass? I'd call him up, and can I speak to Steve? And I'm like, hey, Steve, got a second? He used to call me Rocker. He's like, yeah, what's up, Rocker? I'm like, I'm miking up a sitar. What do I do? And he would tell me. And as I upgraded my studio, he would give me advice on consoles and what to build. And here's another thing: my first records, which sounded amazing, were on TAC Scorpions, TAC. They're a company called AMEC. And Steve told me to always buy consoles that are modular. If you buy a Mac, you buy other like a modern. I don't mean modern like, of course you can get knees and stuff. Those are modern. But if you went out and you got some kind of like Yamaha board or something that wasn't modular, and it was very consumer. It's very difficult to work on. So Steve told me to get a TAC Scorpion, which right now, if you don't have, if you let's say you don't have a laptop and a computer, if you can search for TAC Scorpion, TAC Scorpion, or there's one called a Matchless, and there's one called an AMEC Angela. They're incredible consoles if you can find them, and I don't think they're that expensive. Steve uses Neotex, and now they don't make Neotex anymore. I think the last one they made was the Elite or the Elan. I don't remember which one, but oh, I know. I saw that basement video. That was so sick. I mean, those records that Steve made in his basement. Even and there's another company. Sadly, I had to sell my BSS compressor, but look up online. I want to say it's called a BSS 402. It's a compressor with a de-esser in it, and I know Steve used it all the times because when I was mixing the Breeders record, I actually got to mix a Steve. Um, that's a rarity. I mean, to mix one of his songs that he had tracked, and it was like black magic. I have no idea when I would put up the kick on the beater side. It was only the beater, and I know he used to gate the snare on the beater side. So if you had two hits and there was a snare, whatever on the beater, when the beater if you did your kick drum at the same time as the snare, that was gated. And I know that when I would listen to the tracks, it was just mind blowing and how clean they were. Like even the kick drum outside of the drum set, he never used. I actually have never done those things with the tents. I know like Garth Richardson and some of the greatest, like even Butch Vig and those guys that love tents. They make the kick drum and they They make a little tent around it, and they sometimes there's another kick drum, so you put like a kick drum, and then you run a chair that keeps the tent going over, and then you put another kick drum shell, and then you put like a tube mic. You just do all this stuff. I have not, um, I just not have been into that because I love the way drums sound. Raw dog. I love the kick drum, and there's a lot of guys that are annoyed with cymbals. The way I've gotten around that is I picked microphones that I really love that aren't really hyping cymbals. My spot mics, and this is something, so I'm not always all about Steve Albini. He didn't really believe in miking the hi hats because they're the loudest thing in the drum set, which is true. But I was recording with my friend Thomas Scriven, who owns Analoger, which I always speak about Analoger, and he had these AKG 224E. They're like pencil dynamics, but technically in that dynamics there's a high end and a low end, like a cartridge or capsule, and they're the same ones that are in John Bonham's kick drum. I think it's called a D30, whatever the two element Bonham kick drum that everybody freaks out about. It's the same thing in the AKG 224E, and I would put that on hi hats, and it was just mind blowing on how good it sounded. But they're between $600 to $800, and you have to get one from someone reputable because if the low one's gone, they're ruined. You can't fix them. Um, but we're on the subject of I'm getting off the subject, but if we're getting on the subject about what you're told in modern recording that they say you need to have to be a good producer. I mean, in all honesty, I just did a few bands recently where I feel like I have to reset, where I'm having something to prove to them. I'm not, bands don't come into me, even though I've been recording for 25 and 30 years, and I'm like, hey, I'm so good. You're lucky to be here. Yeah, I have skills that I've learned all these years, but these skills, they're like fighting skills. Like you get in a fight, you gotta have your shit together, because if you don't, you're gonna get your ass kicked. Recording's the same way. I gotta have my stuff together that I need, my mics. Worst scenarios, what happens? Something breaks. This is out. I gotta replace it. How to get around it. And so even recording bands now for me, it's never a given. And I just can't stress enough on it's never given. It's like you never know. And if you really come into work every day and you don't, it's like kind of like fighting too. I'm fighting in the fight comparison. If you don't have it anymore, don't get in the ring. If you're really coming in and you have a studio and you're taking people's money and you don't give a fuck about the band and you're not helping them and you're not doing anything that you really love to do and you're just calling it in, then you're doing that band a disservice. And I know some guys that are like really big studios, and when my buddies go to them, I can hear the recording and it sounds boring. It just sounds like that guy was just like, looking at Instagram while they're recording, and he does his edits and gets them done and mixes it and puts it out. And yeah, it sounds good, but it doesn't have fucking fire, and that's the hardest part is to learn, is to, a lot of my earlier records, I didn't really make any friends because I always have this little saying where I'm not interested in going to your kid's birthday party or going to your uncle's birthday party. I'm just here to help you make a great record. And one thing about Steve Albini, I will say, if you want to stand up on a chair and you want to put a rope around your neck and you want to kick out your own chair and you're going to make that kind of recording where you're really just sabotaging yourself, he wouldn't stop you because he doesn't believe in interfering with the process and will let you be what you be and let you do what you do. And for a lot of years, I tried to do that, but the difference is, in his Chicago scene, when you have like the Jesus Lizard and you're recording Surferosa by the Pixies, and you have these wicked bands that are finding you for a reason. Sometimes when you have people that are really creative like that, especially groups or eras or music scenes, they dictate what you record because they're giving it to you and they're original sounding and they just have their shit together or not together, you know. And when I nowadays, and this is not a complaint, because life now is kind of in the way of artists that spend their life recording and rehearsing and going into rehearsals with a band. Either they go on tour and at the end of the tour they make a record, or they're about to make a record and they rehearse intensely. I'm not saying all bands are not like that, but there is somewhat of a factor that, because life now and living in this modern world, which is really expensive, it's really difficult to get a band to do that. I have been lucky that the first band that came in here, they're called Werewolf Etiquette. They rehearsed their ass off. So when they came in and I cut them pretty much live before we started doing any kind of overdubs, they threw down so hard. And that was a reward to me. So then my job was to not screw it up. So that is kind of a little bit of that Albini thing of like, you got to have, you know, your I's dotted and your T's crossed to really have a band come in and be fierce. So, and I keep on going off the subject of social media, but once again, I am just bombarded with plugins and, you know, I think people want to be something on YouTube, or you know, I was lucky enough and got a lot of shit for it. I did produce like a pro for about 2 years, but that was something that was really interesting to me because at the time it started during the pandemic. The pandemic was fucked up for a lot of people. If you're a sound man or a door guy or you worked in the industry, it just all ended. You're a comedian, you traveled, somehow you had to travel. It just was just over. And that's not a political statement. The world stopped for a few years. And I had written Warren something about this really cool snare trick, and he really came back. And then he wanted to do an interview in my studio, and he came in and spoke with me. And I happened to do some, I don't know what it was, and he happened to say, like, hey, why don't we, do you want to do another episode? And I said, sure. I didn't have a camera, I didn't have a lavalier, I wasn't editing, I wasn't doing anything social media. I was just happened to be, I finished a really wicked record by a band called Spirit in the Room. Do yourself a favor, go check it out. The record is called Flamingo, I believe. I hope so. Um, anyways, that was during the pandemic, and coming out of that, meeting Warren, somehow when he inspired me to like do content, and I was not even thinking about. I'm the last guy to want to go buy a nice, you know, I think about it when I get a Panasonic, whatever. I wasn't interested, but after I did that show with him, we would bring out his film crew, and I would shoot some episodes. And eventually I was like, what kind of camera do you have? What's that lavalier? Oh my God, how does this thing sound so good? And the headphones as we're filming it. And it was, I think it was Audient. It's called an Evo 8. That little thing hooked up to your laptop sounds incredible. And so I got into that. Then I got lavaliers. And then I got, you know, how do you use that? And what am I doing? And then I got the editing program. It was, it's not Final Cut. Mm. Anyways, I just got deep in it. So I started doing episodes. And I think my friends thought that this was something Warren was like, oh, you know, man, he's doing all this Warren stuff with him. And it was the coolest thing about Warren is that he didn't give a fuck what I did. I'd be like, hey, Warren, what do you think about, you know, I know Hunt Sales. Oh, let's get him. Let me know. And he would pay for Hunt to fly out here. He paid for it. And I would get to record Hunt Sales and film it. And it was crazy. And I learned so much from that. And it was just inspiring. And I started doing tutorials on, you know, about Nashville tuning. Um, on my own, started to do, you know, how do you mic a bass, guitar. It sounds dumb. Adobe Premiere. There it is. Thanks, Bruno. Um, so, and I learned how to use that. I mean, I got a little rusty. I haven't really done a full-on video in a while because I've been a little bit underwater since last year. We're talking almost a year of surviving, and I do have some videos that are in my laptop, I went to up to San Francisco, shot a really super cool mic locker. Um, I have another mic locker of a local studio in Los Angeles called Studio 64 or 64 Sounds, I think, with Pierre. Um, I've got to finish that. I just haven't had the headspace when I'm trying to survive finishing off all these microphones that people are blowing up my phone about, and then also designing my own microphone, and then really being excited about making new records here. So, when you talk about making records or being a producer or dreaming of something, you really have to think about what you wish for. And I would say don't buy into all these plugins that are supposedly going to make you sound like the best guys in the world. The best guys in the world sound like the best guys in the world because they have the best bands in the world. And they happen to not have to work, and they go in and make me while they work, but they make music every day, and it's different. So if you can organize your life where you can spend enough money to get the tools of the trade, it's like carpenters. You know, if any guy that rolls up on a construction site, he's got to have the tools that he needs to build. If you're a cook, the same things. Whatever you need to fit into this kitchen and work your way up to become the master chef. A lot of times having a studio is the same way, it's almost the same thing. Comedians, opening up every night like at fucking 6:45, and you're never getting a headlining slot, and then eventually one of these comedians sees you and you get to open up a bigger slot. Then now you're touring and playing big spaces because you worked your ass off to get there. And I think that recording is the same way. And I'm only speaking to the people that engineer and the people that have bands come in and they want to make records. The guy that like can make everything, and you walk in and he's got, like I said, I make fun of the little keyboard that comes out under the. I don't have one for sure. There's no keyboard that's gonna come under this unless you bring one in. I'm just not interested in being that dude, but that's my style. And I really think that you should think about your style of what you want to do. Um, Mostly it's just being deep about recording. All my buddies that are making records, it's tough out there, even for them. And there's a lot of guys that made a lot of money that now have dropped their budgets to not even a fraction of what they used to make. I mean, there was guys that you would say, "Oh, I wish this guy would mix my record." You contact him, and it's like $10,000 a song. If you were signed to a major label, you would just do that. But what's up from Boise? Boise in the house. um, and this producer who got a lot of money was contacted by a big band, and then they're like, "Oh, we have this song we want you to mix." And he's like, "Well, this is my price. It may not have been 10,000. It probably was a little bit lower." And they said, "Oh, sorry, we've sent this same mix to five other guys, and whoever, you know, has the best mix, we will hire." And that was an awakening. This guy is, I'm not gonna say who it was, but he is top dog. And that was the splash of the face of like, oh my God, times have changed. And he had to get to work, and he had to earn that recording and to make a quarter of the money that he would have back in the day. So now there's nothing that's a given. Like, if someone comes in to record with me, I have to really work and make sure that they're happy. It's not like you're recording with Manny. It's like, what can I do to make you happy? It's a different approach. I never was like that back in the old day. I didn't give a fuck. I was just whatever come in. I was all tape for about mm, maybe the first 13 years of making records. Didn't even have a computer monitor. I had a 2-inch 16. I got another 2-inch 16. I got a 2-inch 24. I had a console. Um, it didn't matter. What's up, Luke? You got it. You caught me live. I'm busted. Um, so, you know, nowadays when you talk about making records, and I'm only speaking to the people that want to do engineering side of things, because like I said, I'm not just trying to get rapper chicks in here and girls and trying to write songs and trying to. There's a lot of producers I know that their life is all about getting writers credit. That they try to insert a vibe, change a lyric, do a chorus, make a partnership with the band because they believe in the writing side of things to make money through publishing. If, like, let's say, I don't know who that would be. Let's say I use Linda Perry as an example. I think she's top notch, and whatever she does, she just has it. Um, oh, let's see, Luke, watching you repair ribbon mics. um, but like Linda Perry, she's she's got it, and when you're able to set up your life that you can just do stuff like there's going to be her strengths and then her weaknesses, and the same thing with uh, what's his name, Nigel Godrich, does all the Radiohead stuff. God, his back record was outstanding. I mean, there's all kinds of guys. I love Rich Costi's mixing. And then you go back to like some of the records that you loved, you know what I mean? The classic records. Even the Eagles. I remember reading about it was one of the brothers that did Led Zeppelin, um Johns, or was it Andy Johns or Glenn Johns? One of the guys did the Eagles. And he pretty much would tell them almost belittling way as like you guys aren't really a band or it was always like they were always fighting to get the respect of him, and it never did come. But they made great records. I think I have that record that has like Disco Strangler and some of the best records they made were under these conditions of working with someone that just kind of thought they're a bunch of wanking California dudes, not real men. But um, but art is definitely to be perceived in any way you have it. So I can't be Albini, and I can't be Dave Sardi. I can't be Nick Lene. I can't be Andy Johns or Glenn Johns or Eddie Kramer. But I can be Manny, and I can take what I loved about each one of those guys and learn and apply it to making records. So, and I just want you to be careful out there when you're spending your money on stuff. Figure out what you really want. You want to be like a dude that's like, you're going to open up a studio and you're going to put ads all over the city that you want to have clientele come in. And those are the studios that scare me. Because even in my own studio, which is not listed, it's very private, you have to know me or you can contact me and I'll work with you. I can't have this place rented out to another producer. My patch bay is like a rat's nest. It makes sense owned to me. If my gear busts, I have an old HD rig, which is illegal in most states. It's an HD 10 rig, but sounds fucking godly. It's amazing. It sounds like an analog tape machine, but you can't, they're obsolete now. But on my plug-in setup, I have everything I want. Cool reverbs. I get like some sound toys and some really cool stuff. Um, but I don't have some of the most modern things that are fixing stuff or get all that whole thing about aligning all the mics on your drum set to be in phase. Um, sound is coming in at different times. That is a sound in itself. Correcting everything doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to sound better. You got to know, definitely, if you use a room mic on a guitar, is that mic in phase or out of phase? You have to know if you have a DI on the bass and then you have a mic on the amp, most likely the DI is going to be out of phase. If you have a top mic on the snare and the bottom mic on the snare, all the bottom mics are usually out of phase. You have to know these things, and when you put your two overheads or single overhead, you got to know is the overhead and the snare in phase with your toms and the kick drum and the room mics. That is engineering, but you just have to figure out what you really want. If you're just a cat that's in a band and you want to record yourself and you go to Guitar Center and you get, whatever, a bundle, plugins or whatever you're using, and you're making records in your room because you're playing acoustic and you got on the drum set with two mics and you're starting to make your first recordings and it's sounding beautiful and awesome. Yeah, that is what the benefit of modern recording is. That doesn't scare me and it doesn't make me like, oh no, don't do that. Come to my studio. I'm like, go ahead, man. But I'll tell you this much. As soon as he gets in a band and then he offers to record that band, and then he's off hanging out with his girlfriend, and the band's like seeing him on social media hanging out with his girlfriend in Las Vegas. They're like, hey, when are we gonna finish this recording, man? Like, we gotta get this done. When he starts getting the pressure of, I'm telling you, man, it just, you should always think about what you wish for. I know a lot of guys that started recording themselves and they start to record the band. That's how you lose friendships. You really have to walk that line of when you're gonna record your friends or family or band you love, you gotta somehow figure out how to speak with them. Hold on, we have a question real quick here. Well, I'm thinking of this. What was the correct orientation for storing of the ribbon mics? I would say this, man. Ribbon mics, we're going to talk about ribbons for a second because of a question from Jam Pro Sound. If you have, all right, this is it's an okay example. This is an R144 MXL that I'm going to replace the ribbons. Once I put a ribbon inside, I just took a picture of this before I got it. But when I had it like this, you can see the ribbon sagging. So if you're storing your ribbon mic with the ribbon and it's hanging, you're just stretching it out. The proper way to store your ribbon is to be up like this, so it's hanging. And it's like this, it'd be drooping, and eventually the ribbon will sag and you'll have to replace it. So all ribbons should be done like this. The only ones you don't have to worry about, which are like Buyer 160s, Buyer 500s, Buyer 230s, anything that's a small kind of like, I don't have one here, a handheld mic, like a, let's say, I know that's not a ribbon, but a 57, you can just put it anywhere you want. A Buyer 160, you can put it anywhere you want. It doesn't matter. The ribbon's so small and they're so corrugated, so durable, they're not going to really flex. They can get wore out and they get ruined. But like a Royer, I would probably keep those straight up. I've seen those and they can sag and stretch out from sound. And if you hang them like that, they're just going to be sagging in the, like for example, this is actually a ribbon. If it's sagging in the mic, it's going to get ruined. If I have this and I'm hanging it like that, it's straight. And that goes with all ribbons. Like I have these, I did these mics, these are lollipops. These are symbolically almost the same as this inside. So if you're having like a lollipop ribbon, you would still have them either like this, upside down. Now if you're tracking and you leave them up on the stands and you have them like that, it just depends. But if you tilt them down or tilt them up and you put plastic bags on them so there's no dust on them, you can store them like that. But these mics I would store standing up, not like this. But if they're on your drum set for a few weeks, whatever, it's not going to be that bad. It's just when you put them away for a long time and, like big ribbons like RCA or AEA 44s, you definitely have to stand them up. Most of the time when they come in those big cases with the big handles and they can hang them, R84s, you gotta hang those up. Or just have them sitting up. So yeah, you usually get a rack or some kind of place that you can hang your ribbons. They're kind of like bats. We just hang them upside down or have them sitting upside down because a lot of them are awkward to stand straight up because they usually have the cables on the bottom, so you do them upside down. It doesn't matter. And like I said, the only mics you don't have to worry about that are smaller ribbons, and that's only a small group of mics that make ribbons. Like all the buyer mics are all small ribbons. Don't have to worry about it. They can sit in a bag, sit on on their side. Only the bigger mics, all the AA mics. I would say even the N22, definitely the R88, which is probably one of the greatest mics on earth. I would definitely do another one of those. I would hang those for sure. And that's pretty much it. But I'm just gonna sign off. I'm gonna let you guys go. Yeah, I just, my thought of going on was just kind of what I've just seen on social media. Oh, I know. I was saying too about when I did the produce like a pro. So where I am now today, I am grateful and I am thankful that I got to work with Warren because I learned a lot. It really, I went out and bought a camera. I got the lavaliers, and like I said, I learned how to do the production of making your own videos. And just even like last year, I did a video for Tascam. I've done one for Mojave. I've done videos for companies I really love, Audioscape. And if I talk to Chris, the owner, and he's like, got a new product, I can film it and I can show it. And even though everybody has those skills now, for me, I'm like an old dog, new tricks. I've been doing this for a long time. Even my buds that are super sick producers very rarely pull out their camera and take a picture of the artist they're working with. Some of them are just, they're working with great artists, you know what I mean? But like, it's just not their vibe. I love doing that. I'll pull out my camera and video shoot me recording something or doing something because it's really interesting for me, and that's just kind of my own thing. So there is no right way or there's no wrong way, but I will say is I'm gonna let you go, but you really should figure out what you're doing as far as recording and then spend your money appropriately to get what you need done. And that means plugins, gears, audio. If you're gonna play thumb drums, go ahead and buy all the drum packs you want. Maybe that's your whole thing. I heard a guy. I mean, there was a guy that gave me a record, and I swear to God, he played him. He played the drums kind of bad with his thumbs, but there was something real about that. I was like, oh my God! And he had like the Albini drum pack, and like minus some fills, it was pretty goddamn rocking. And so, yeah, you can blur the lines, and he really had to get that done. He was inspired to make a record. He didn't have a studio, he didn't have a drummer, he didn't have a band, and he was able to get it done. He had to meet a super sick record, and I got to mix it. But yeah, it's just tomato, tomato, man. You make the best of it, but just be careful what you buy and make sure that what you buy fits what you need. I'm still on the search for some cool mics that I want. I think about a year and a half ago, I had probably everything I'd want: 67s, 87s, 47s, C12, C12As. I had all of them. And then when I was at Analog, of course, they had a lot of stuff. And then when I moved into here and I set up the drums with my own selection of mics, sounded as good or even better, which makes me think, okay, do you drop $100,000 and buy all the classic mics? Is it bragging rights? Is this the dude that drives around in the Porsche and the Ferrari and brags about his car and how much it costs? Or we talk about the guy that takes it, Turbo Canyon or races it, and on the weekend drives up the two up Angeles Crest, and he gets enjoyment out of driving his Porsche and doesn't tell anybody, doesn't take pictures in front of his car. He just does it. So your gear and what you buy and how you use it, I think it's super important. I wish I could talk to you guys more in depth about what modern technology is doing for helping, and then also what modern technology is doing for kind of enabling making people be mediocre. Like, oh, that'll fix it. And I'm not talking about AI or whatever. I know people can fix everything with that and they can align vocals and it's way better. But there's something about when you get to do it by hand and not tune it. I just think it's important. Um, oh, Bruno, what do you have to say? I don't have a lot of mics. The ones I have helped me do a lot. That's it. That's it, man. Dude, the CAD dual ribbon. Um, I I'll be honest with you. I've re-ribboned those, and they sound even better. That CAD is a monster. It actually looks like inside. It looks just like this times two. So you imagine here. There's another one right there, and there's two ribbons. Massive sound. Yeah, if you ever want, man, send those to me and I can re-ribbon those. But they're really, really good. Even out of the gate, CAD makes really good mics. But yeah, man, just be careful in what you do and how you spend your money. And I think if you're gonna get some tools of the trade, do the ones that everybody talks about: 1176s, LA2As. When you start going down different colors and getting more boutique stuff, what was that thing when you buy that boutique thing for 3,600 bucks? It's like a car. You drive it off the lot. Now it's worth 2,400. You think, and then pretty soon you can't even sell it, and you get rid of it for 1,200 because you don't use it anymore. Just make sure whatever you buy, that you buy it because you love it and you like it. Everything I have, I love it. I know I got a full rack of um, Nash. What's up? Sending much love from Winnipeg, Canada. I love Canada. When my band, Distortion Felix, we would tour up. Every time we entered Vancouver, it was rowdy as fuck. We used to play this. I think the club was called the Gaslight. And it was, and I remember when we got the flyers, it said Bikers Tuesday or Bikers Sunday, and I'm thinking bikers. I'm thinking like motorcycles or something. You know, I mean, I'm thinking like we went up. It was a bunch of dudes on bike, literally bikes, but they're all the rowdy guys. They're delivery guys or whatever they were doing, and it was the best shows we ever had. I remember when we toured up there with um, guys from Hot Hot Heat. Went to Nanimo. It was insane. You know, I love Canada. The pizza over there, and it's weird. No one ever talks about that. The pizza in Vancouver is outrageous, and they say it's the water. I have no idea, but yeah, man, I love Vancouver, and I'm jealous of people that get to live in Canada because it's so beautiful. But they have their own issues. I have a lot of friends that used to fly from Canada to work in Los Angeles. It's really difficult to work back and forth or to get a work permit, or even for me if I wanted to record in Canada. Really, really you need all this paperwork, a lot of taxes, a lot of if you're in a band and you're touring and you cross the border, you get taxed on how much merchandise you have, even though you haven't even sold it. You have to like pay. And I remember we were selling CDs, and they, how many CDs? And it was like 100 CDs, and then they taxed us on that. It was like $400 or something like that, and I was like, holy smokes! So you have to be sneaky when you're going to Canada. I don't know how it is now. It's been a long time. Um, well, anyway, so that was my advice. Is, I always talk about oh, Anthony Nieto. Is this guy really? Are you really my cousin Anthony? Tell me your sister. What's her name? If you tell me it is what I think it is, I'm gonna trip. uh, Anthony. No, but I'm in San Gabriel. He's close. I'm not far from San Gabriel myself. I'm actually close to Monterey Park, which is near San Gabriel. What's up, Anthony? You can call me your cousin. So, yeah, man, I just think that what you buy and what you get now is just really blurred. I mean, I have friends that go to like, big, you know, I think it's crazy like Sweetwater and stuff. I think Sweetwater is kind of cool. I mean, my speakers, my ATCs, I wouldn't be able to got them if it wasn't for Sweetwater. They got that like three payment deal. Those are like $2,000, like three payments of like $800, and I got them, and it was insane. It was totally appreciated that from companies like that. So yeah, I'm not talking bad about those big companies, but when you go out and decide to buy a whole studio and you're going to open up a facility and you're going to advertise it, you know, man, I know guys that have parents that have a lot of money and they open up a commercial studio, and when their plumbing goes bad and things go awry and they've had clients that have come in and booked the studio for time, you spend a lot of money making sure that the clients are happy. With this studio, I'm like, dude, there's some issues with this bathroom right now. There's another bathroom over there. You can go use that one. There's another bathroom on the other side of this wall. And I just sent him over there. And not really. I mean, I got a little kitchen area, but I'm just like, man, we got to eat in the back. Okay, you can grab the tamales, but you got to eat them back there. So, yeah, it's not a commercial. I don't have a lounge. There's not a, you know, basketball court and things to pool table or rec room, you know, but I make super sick records and I'm still trying to get better at it. So, words of wisdom, I'm just tuning in, sharing a little bit. I do have some videos I want to do. I just haven't had a chance to. So, I appreciate you all for tuning in. Like I said, times are tough. You want to buy Manny a coffee, send me a message. Or just give me a coffee. I think if you hit the thanks, I'll go to Starbucks and I'll buy a coffee on you. Am I begging for coffee and money? Maybe. But thank you all. I am busy and back to work. And if you got some ribbon mics, I am chipping away at that pile. It was massive. I'm probably about like 30% through the pile of ribbons, but each one I've got to do it. Each one's got to sound great, and I do care. So, all right, I'm going to sign off. We'll talk about some other stuff the next time I meet up with you all. Anthony, next time in San Gabriel, coffee. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Menudo. Mm-hmm. All right, Vancouver Island. Yeah, and that ferry that you get on, you drive your car to Nanaimo. Man, if I had money and I wasn't in love with making records and I could live somewhere, I would have a house in Vancouver. I would definitely have a house in Vancouver. But I don't like bears. Is Bigfoot around there? I don't know about eating by a bear either. My friend has a studio. My friend Garth Richardson. I think he has a studio on an island out there. Garth is super. Garth was the first guy to take my band into Sound City, and Garth Richardson is a Canadian. Garth Richardson, if you look him up, it's called Garth. He stutters, and his Garth has a bunch of G's before it. He obviously has a good sense of humor. But Garth was the first guy to take my band in with Stan Katayama. At the time, Garth's claim to fame was doing Rage Against the Machine's first record. But he's also done Jesus Lizard, super heavy band, Chili Peppers. Garth is still one of those dudes still kicking ass and making records up in Canada. So a lot of love for Canada, and my homies are for my Canadian homies. Yeah, what are we gonna do without that maple syrup? Well, no political stuff here. We're all just surviving. We're all in it together. We're all musicians or artists. Let's kick ass. Uh, Portugal, what's going on? Yeah. See, I've always thought about that. I think I have my friend Boz, who's in Morrissey's band. They actually bought a whole town. I don't even know. Like it has like an auditorium, a church, a school. Like they bought the whole town. Dude, Anthony just kicked me down $20 for coffee. I'm rich. With love, man. That was so sweet of you, Anthony. Thank you so much. That is not taken for granted. And thank you so much. Because it does help me. And I don't know why I need coffee every day. I need coffee every day. I just went to Starbucks this morning, um, bought a bunch of waters and little apple juices for my wife, and a good coffee with 2 shots in it. Anyways, Anthony, thank you so much. I appreciate that $20, and I know we're all not rich here and supporting everybody. And here's another thing: if you can, help out some homies and people that you know that are working hard. If on your Instagram you see some guy that's like making shirts or pants or repost it. Do something to share like people that are working as artists, you know what I mean? Like really oh thank you regarding the hunt sales video. But yeah, do what you can to help out artists and people that you enjoy and you work with. And I've done the same thing. There's a girl drummer that was in Japan, and she does these like Ringo Starr covers, and I'll just repost her, and like she'll get a bunch of likes from my friends, and people really love when people care. I think people do that enough. They're just too cool for something that's nowadays. And even me being here on YouTube, I got a lot of flack from doing Produce Like a Pro, and it was people question like what I'm really doing, and it's like if you know my story, look up Tape Op magazine, Manny in China, or search Yahoo or whatever, Google Manny in China, and you'll see me leaving the United States in 2011 to 2013 for 2 years. I bought a one-way ticket to China. I only had 900 bucks in my pocket. I closed my studio. I had 160 pounds of gear on me. And I traveled China for 2 years, living off the land, recording hardcore bands. Almost died a bunch of times. And that was when I was 44 to 46 years old. So it wasn't like I just went, backpacking in my 20s and I'm going to see the world. I literally went over there to see if I can record the craziest bands on earth, and I did. And so when people talk about my integrity of like what I do for a living, man, I almost fucking died a bunch of times for art. And when I went to China, that was specifically like questioning, do I want to record still? Questioning, what am I doing? I mean, I remember I was recording a band in Los Angeles, and they were like eating sandwiches in my studio, and they're playing that night at the Echo, and like one guy goes, "Hey man, we sold out the Echo," and the guy's all cool, and they just eat their sandwiches. Like, I've lived in LA my whole life. I've never sold out a club, and it's like these motherfuckers don't appreciate it. I'm not saying I haven't played a show that was sold out. I did open up for Fugazi, sold out. I did open up for Blonde Redhead and the Locust and at the Drive-In. I have opened up for Gang of Four, the X out of Holland, Shellac in Los Angeles, opened up for Shellac in Europe. When I flew to Europe, we played Ultramiles parties with the Breeders, Battles, Shellac. Oh my god, the sickest crew of bands. So I played great shows, but I've never been in a show where we've sold it out. So that was at the time where I was questioning music. So anyway, so when people talk about my integrity, you fly over to China with a bunch of recording gear and record bands in Cold War bunkers that eventually, after you've been in the Cold War bunker below Shanghai for about a week, you don't notice the signs because they're in Chinese, but they say all the walls are asbestos. What the heck? And that was Manny. And then the guy's all, "You want to leave now?" I'm like, "I've been in here for 2 weeks. Like, is it really going to make a difference now?" So I continued recording there for another week or so. And then now, when I went down to those bunkers, I was aware of that. And maybe I think I shifted from recording too much in the bunkers to live sound houses. But, anyways, yeah, read Tape Op and just, you know, what is. Yeah. Oh, dude. Another 13 bucks here. Oh my god. CC hooked me up. Thank you so much. Cheers to you. I appreciate that. So, Shallot Creek, what is that? Is that your studio? Or what is the story on that? Is that a slang? I mean, I'm probably even saying it wrong. Chalet Creek? Shallot Creek? Anyways, thank you so much. Um, I'm definitely not doing a song and dance and tap dancing. I'm just sharing experiences. You need to find your own experiences. When I went to China for 2 years, I'll do another one. My next live, I'll just speak about the whole adventures, the real story of recording in China, which, if you look it up, it's mind blowing. I recommend looking up that tape op, and it's a good taking a poop read. If you're taking a poop, it's a good read. Um, yeah, so I went to Shanghai with only enough money. I was so stupid. I was naive. I flew. I had an apartment in Highland Park, California. I told my landlord I'll be back in like 3 weeks. I never came back. She was so mad at me, and she put my stuff in storage. But at the time, I traveled light, and um, a lot of lessons learned in that whole thing, man. It was crazy. Um, it was just lessons learned, life lessons. But I did meet my wife in Hong Kong. I did get married in Singapore, same girl. But I didn't go over there to bang chicks. I didn't never went to Bangkok. I don't know about Thai boys and all that crazy shit that's in Thailand. I was strictly traveling through China in the dead of winter, 10 below zero, ice cold. I recorded on a lotus pond in Chengdu, China. I had some of the best food in my life. Chinese food in China is not Chinese food in the United States. It was amazing. And man, there was times where I was walking around because social media, I don't know how it is now, but social media back then was just cut off. My Yahoo or anything I had to get a VPN, which is the only way you can log in. Like you log into like a safe country. I can log into Hong Kong, and then I could get my email from Beijing. Only if I log in with the VPN saying that I was in Hong Kong, I could see it. But you can't. Social media was not. I almost got arrested. But anyways, I'll save that story. Um, the next time I go live, I'll just talk about China. I was gonna make a video as well, but maybe I'm just gonna do a live thing. I don't know. I think that it was crazy, and what I learned from that is because I traveled with all my gear, and this is after I've already been recording for like a lot of years. Setting up your gear every day and then carrying it out of the studio. I mean, I had on my body was a Pro Tools or an Avid 002, which is pretty big. I had the DMP by BAE Neve was on me, SM7s. I had a full pack of SE microphones. Um, I had 60 pounds of cables that were being pulled in a carry-on behind me. And on my body was a laptop, hard drives. And at the time, things weren't as small as they were now. So even my Mac laptop was bigger. The hard drives were bigger. It was pretty crazy. And when I got back home after that, it was just like, yeah, I wasn't tainted anymore. And I was actually excited. And I don't know how to express it. It's not like you're lazy, but like when some guy would be like, "Oh, I don't know about my bass sound. What do I got to do?" And I'd go down there and change the mic, do whatever. Like, I wanted to make the guys happy, and I rewrote, or rebooted myself, and reprogrammed on how to make records. And I think that even to this day, a lot of that is still with me. So I was blessed to go to China for 2 years. If you have it in you to ever do it, I don't know where you can go now in the world that would be so forbidden. At the time when I went to China in 2011, man, you could not go into China without special papers. And I actually went in there and had to pay a lady at the across the street from the China Embassy tourist company to get me a special permit so I can go into China. And then I had to get paperwork from SE microphones that showed that I can travel with microphones because I could be arrested. So yeah, man, the next chat we're going to talk about China. Thank you guys for sending that extra dough for my coffee. I really appreciate it. This is probably one of the toughest times in my life. I'm not even lying. It has been insane not working for 4 months, but I didn't cut any corners. I had to wait till the studio arrived, being able to record bands. Even if I had a great setup and great gear and could run all the wiring in here, I had to make sure that this mixing room sounded good. I had to make sure that my ISO boost sounded good. And then I just barely put together a vicious drum set out there that I could use. And now all the food groups are here to make records, even though I have a lot more fine tuning. And even my room, I could have built this out and made it really soundproof. That's that example of wasting your time and money doing something that may not matter. I know with some producer blankets, some sound diffusion, my ears, and the same gear I trust, I was able to get a good sound in here, and I did. So, lessons learned. Everybody, Denver, what's up? Um, I got some mics. I did some mics for Denver. Thank you, man. Um, but once again, just I appreciate you guys. This is a weird thing to just open up your phone and then you know talking to people around the world. I mean, like talking to Denver, talking in Portugal, Bruno, um, Portugal the man. I'm sorry, I almost was gonna record Portugal the man. I was at World Zen, a producer management company, and they were playing the Troubadour, and I went down to go see them play, and I'm not sure what had happened. I just did a band called Health, and they were kind of a big thing, and you know, whatever. Werewolf Etiquette. Oh my God, that's the band I'm working on right now, and I've got to get back to mixing their song. They're coming in on Friday to track some more, and just Jeff Haba is an insane drummer. Look at my YouTube. Werewolf Etiquette, the drummer. I was doing another session. I hired him, or he was hired to play on my buddy's record. But I actually asked him, I go, can you do a drum solo? And for like 7 minutes, he soloed. So check my YouTube for that, probably about 3 or 4 videos ago. And it was just amazing. All right, I'm getting parched now. Hold on. A quick drink. This is my water. I think I've talked myself out. Ribbon mics. I love them. And I'll talk to you guys later. I hope that was cool. Hope you guys got a little something in there you can learn from. And like I said, the next one I do, we'll talk about China. And I had to get my throat. Sorry about that. The next time we'll talk about China and actually making the leap. Really want to record and do this for a living. I've had 3 or 4 moments in my life where I was quitting my job because I thought I'm pretty good at this and I want to make records. And that was about 1998, 1997. So we're already like 27 years ago. I was like, but also I want to be understanding that that was a different time. And it's funny, like, I know I'm gonna go, but the bracket of producers when I started recording, the bracket of producers that was before me, millionaires, you know, $200,000, $300,000, $1 million budgets, just racket in the dough. And then when I started recording, indie bands started happening, and the budget started going away, and then obviously the decline of labels, and pretty soon there isn't a lot of money. So if there was not a lot of money in it, I can't say go out and start a studio, but I feel like recording and being a musician is kind of like a disease, and you got to feed it. And if that's your jam, and you want to record, and you want to be a badass, and you just want to, get your hands dirty, get in it, but be smart and make sure you spend your money wisely, even for the coffees. I will appreciate those coffees, man. And I thank you guys for being very supportive. I will be doing, in return, sharing some really cool stuff. Um, my own band is called the Chavez Ravine. And we recorded some new songs that just got mastered in Nashville. And I can't say any more about it until it gets ready to be released. But when it gets released, I will share it with you. and it has a special guest vocalist that, for me, is probably one of the greatest voices on earth. They sang on one of our songs, and it's incredible. And I will do a breakdown of that. And hopefully, when I share, if we have a video or whatever it has with you all, I would love to hear back from you what you think about it. There's two songs that are really, really great, and I'm really proud of it. So even as a producer, I can't forget I love playing guitar. I love being a musician. I love being an artist. And thank you all for permitting me to be an artist another day. Take care of yourself. I feel like it's a Sunday. It's Tuesday. My God. We're not even to hump day yet. So let's kick ass, make some records. Thank you all.